What's up, everybody? Welcome to Discourse and Chill. I'm Ian.
And I'm your girl, Reese.
Today, we're going to talk about healthy communication versus trauma responses. And this topic came from a conversation that Reese and I were having, and we just thought it would be great to have it for the chillers and share with you some of our experiences with healthy communication, with trauma responses, and our journey and how we have learned to communicate with others, learn how we become more healthy in our communication, and learn about how we were just sometimes, fucked up in our communications. I'll speak for myself. Not all of it has been healthy. So we're all growing here. And we also want to talk about our journey and our growth in that space as well. So I'll throw it straight to you, Reese. What is your experience with healthy communication?
Um, I feel like I don't have a lot of experience when it comes down to healthy communication. Not even saying a lot of experience, but not of years worth of experience for healthy communication. I feel like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
learn the ideal of what healthy communication looked like for me until my older years. I feel like I have gone through situations that I probably shouldn't have been in because I didn't speak up for myself. For me, healthy communication allows me to be open, to be honest, to speak freely, and to be able to express how things are making me feel. And I didn't walk into that until I was older. Probably like late 20s, early 30s older. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was a time for me where I guess I kind of was like, wait, this is not how it's supposed to go, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so for me, being able to communicate freely, being able to express myself fully wasn't something that I did in with family relationships, friend relationships, romantic relationships, even my professional relationships. Like I was always, and probably still to some extent, people pleasing,
Mm-hmm.
um and didn't realize or recognize that this wasn't healthy for me and my growth, you know what I'm saying, my healing processes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think for me, healthy communication came later in life. And I always thought that oh, I know I'm strong and I'm doing this, and I'm communicating well. And it was just like a light bulb went off, like somebody turned the switch on, was like, but you're not though, the
Mm-hmm.
things that you're doing aren't healthy for yourself, and aren't really healthy for others either. So for me, um I am still new-ish in the realm of healthy communication. It has been liberating and freeing, I will say that. But it was something that I had to recognize and come to terms with, and be open about, embracing healthy communication. So I'm still in the process of my experience with it. It's going good so far. But
Yeah.
it's definitely something that I had to be honest about. I didn't know what healthy communication was at one point. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I don't know if I still do know exactly what healthy communication looks like and is supposed to be. But I just know how I'm trying to define it for myself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's all you can do, right?
Yeah. What about you?
Mhm.
What has your experience with healthy communication been like?
I think it's been an evolution. I think the definition for me has evolved as I've gotten older. I think
Mhm.
I was somebody who always was able to communicate with what I needed, what I wanted, and how I wanted it. So,
Mhm.
but the problem with that is that not I guess the problem with that was my tone wasn't always the best. And so it was
Mhm.
hard for people to hear me because I always delivered things with a
Mhm.
particular tone. And I also have learned that so communication goes both ways. It's like when you're speaking and when you're
Mhm.
listening. And there's instances where I've been listening and people think I'm not paying attention because I don't acknowledge them or I'm not engaged in a way that makes them feel comfortable. And so I think
Mhm.
those two things have evolved. I've definitely taken time to work on my tone when I can, because I
Mhm.
think part of that is that I can't hear it. And so
Yeah.
it's about me trying to deliver things in a way that makes people feel more comfortable in some instances, and then also acknowledging and listening in a much more engaging way that doesn't make it seem like I'm being dismissive of them. So I think it's just been a I'm somebody who takes feedback, and like I don't know, I like feedback. So if I'm doing something wrong, like I just need you to tell me why I'm doing something wrong or why it is wrong to you. But usually I like to be able to take feedback. So I think over the years I've gotten a lot of feedback from friends, women I've been in relationships with, women I've like not been in relationship with, and just talked to, family members, and just tried to kind of piece that together to be like 1% better every day. That's so cliche as hell, but like that's the goal, right? It should just be a little bit better every day, because I
Yeah.
can't say I'm gonna be like this tomorrow. You know, I can't promise that, but I can promise
Yeah.
that I'll think about it more before I speak, and so that way I can deliver the message that I have with care more so than just blurting out the thing that I want to blurt out because my brain wants to
Mhm.
just do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny
Yeah.
how you say that you had to make people more comfortable like in communication, and for me I had to be okay with making people uncomfortable because I always wanted to make sure
Hmm.
people were comfortable in communications even when I was not, you know. So I had to
Hmm.
be okay with like, making people uncomfortable in conversation for my greater
Yeah.
good, you know? So
Yeah,
it's funny
for
how
sure.
people's experiences are different. Like, you needed
Hmm.
to soften and I needed to be harder when it came down
Yeah,
to communication.
yeah,
Yeah.
and not necessarily harder, but more firm in you, right? Like more firm in like
Yeah.
your comfort and your and prioritize that space. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I also think when I was younger, I thought it was a person's responsibility to be comfortable, right? Like I
Hmm.
always believe that it's not my responsibility to make you comfortable in
Hmm.
any instance. Like if we're having a conversation or a discussion or argument or anything like that, like I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I just never thought it was my responsibility to be like to make it more comfortable for you or more
Yeah.
I don't know, like a safer space. Like I think that's a good term. Like a safer space for you. I thought
Yeah.
that was like your responsibility. Like I came into this conversation completely like I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Just sure of myself and confident in myself. And so
Hmm.
if you show up to this conversation, I need you to show up this way so we can have this conversation. But I think it's
Yeah.
also I've been learning that it's important for me to like show up in a way that lends itself to um, me delivering my message in a way that makes you feel comfortable and not attacked, and also listening in a way that makes you feel heard, so you want to share more. You know?
Yeah, and I think for me with my experience, it was more so like I had to ensure that I was palatable as a black woman, because it's
Mm-hmm.
always, oh,
Mm-hmm.
she's angry, oh, she's got attitude, all this kind of stuff. So I always tried to ensure that I was palatable across the board and wasn't really
Mm-hmm.
being as assertive as I needed to be because I was like, I don't want to fall into this stereotype and I don't want people
Mm-hmm.
to label me. So I had to always make sure, not even make sure, like I tiptoed around and walked on eggshells for a long time because I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to not be the angry black woman. And it was like
Mm-hmm.
it didn't serve me well at all. So
Yeah.
either way, they still called me angry. Like
Yeah.
I was
Exactly.
still considered as with attitude. So my passion, I was never the passionate one. I was always the angry one.
Mm-hmm.
But if one of my counterparts had the same response as I did, oh, they're so passionate about X, Y, and Z, but I'm
Exactly.
angry. So yeah. So it was really just trying to people please and like stay in my place and all the
Mm-hmm.
all the foolishness bullshit that they put on black women
Yeah.
is kind of like where I was up until my late 20s early 30s, and I was like, this ain't it. Like no
Mm-hmm.
matter what I do, it's not enough. No
Yeah.
matter how soft, quote unquote, I am, I'm still considered like the hard rock. So
Yeah.
what is it? So yeah, it's crazy. And that works with like in professional settings and also around black men, like black men swear they champion for black women, but be some of the first ones to like throw us in like the label box and the stereotypes
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So it's just really unfortunate that it took me a long time to find my true voice when it came down to healthy communication because of trying to ensure that I came across in the right way at all times.
Mm-hmm. I hear that. I hear that. And it's interesting because I get this thing from my dad. He always used to say, "Well, they crucified Jesus." After I would say so and so was like talking about me and said I was X, Y, and Z, he
Mm-hmm.
like, "Well, they crucified Jesus." He would always say that. It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
the same message as like you can't please everyone, right? It's always going to be somebody who's going to speak negatively on you. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
growing up hearing that message, I honestly stopped caring about how people perceived me because it was more important that I showed up for me in a way that I was comfortable. Like when I went home at night, like could I look myself in the mirror? Could I like go down? Could I go to sleep not thinking about it? So that became my
Mm-hmm.
priority in my like rendering essentially. And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting we have had two different like it sounds like we're on like two different sides of the scale and we're like trying to meet here. We're trying to get that perfect balance of championing for yourself and like staying true to yourself
Mm-hmm.
and also like being considerate of the person that you're engaging with in whatever setting that is, whether it be professional, personal, or what.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy because like again, like, as a black woman, it's the hardest thing in the world to be is a black woman. Like, I've said that multiple times. It has been said multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 'cause it's just like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, and you have to get to the point where it's like, well, I'm just gonna be damned if I do because I can't keep doubting. you know. So it's yeah, it's a hard space to be in, especially when you are trying to take up the space that you deserve. Like, everybody deserves the space that they take up in this world,
Mm-hmm.
and it isn't always communicated that way when it comes down to my group of people as black women, and that's across the board. I feel like at times black men have definitely dropped the ball when it comes to black women, and we as a community need to have that conversation and be able to communicate better with each other, um because yeah, the hardest thing to be is a black woman.
Yeah.
So
I don't disagree. I think I'm reading this book called The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. It's about men,
mm-hmm.
masculinity, and love, and it talks about how
Mm-hmm.
there's a lack of acknowledgement that like men have also been victims of the patriarchy as well. And so
Mm-hmm.
to fit in sometimes, I think black men have had a tendency to discount even,
Mm-hmm.
you know, discount black women in conversation in communities
Yeah.
in workplaces and all those things. And I think it's really important that we have to first be able to acknowledge the fact that, like, one, we are
Mm-hmm.
victims of this problem, and then two,
Yeah.
push against it so we're able to make space for everyone to communicate uh, and champion for themselves and advocate for themselves and be able to like be whole in themselves without having to fit a particular mode. And that goes for like black men as well. It's like I think there's
Mm-hmm.
more social capital for black men to portray this toxic masculinity than it is for a black man to communicate in a way that shows grace or offers a safe space or is more, I guess, tenable to the needs of the person they're communicating with. And so we really have to start at the, I guess, the genesis and really focus on breaking down the social norms around the patriarchy so we can feel
Mm-hmm.
more comfortable in those spaces. But yeah, I
Right.
think it's so true that we haven't been the best champions of black women. And
Mm-hmm.
that should be the case. We should be the best champions for black men, black women, and good people in general. But it definitely should start
Mm-hmm.
at home.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
it's crazy because like you see the Russell Wilsons and the ASAP Rockies that are like supportive and like, proud to be with their woman, doing things for their women, and the community is like, oh, he's simping. Oh, they're trying to like de what's the word I'm looking for? They're trying to like basically like strip his manhood for like doing
Mm-hmm.
things that are based out of love and admiration for the woman that they chose to be with. So yeah,
Yeah.
we have to do better, and I can't there's a word on the tip of my tongue that does not want to come out.
That's all good.
um
I think everybody knows what you mean by simping.
Yeah. Yeah, which is like the dumbest thing ever. I'm so confused because when it goes the opposite way, nobody is saying, "Oh, that woman's doing too much for her man." It's like, "Girl, you better do for your man." You're supposed to do that for your man.
Yeah,
But as soon as it's reversed, then it's an issue. Um, it's just so
that's the
confusing.
patriarchy, though, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the point. Is like the patriarchy makes it so that women have the social capital when they have a man who provides, so they have to do everything else, right? And then the
Mm-hmm.
man is supposed to just provide, but the emotional support, the communicativeness of the relationship, the willingness to listen, like the willingness to help out around the house
Mm-hmm.
kind of strips away the masculinity within the patriarchal kind of hierarchy of things, right? Like
Yeah.
so I think that's the problem is that there's no social capital for men to do the things that women really need. There's more social capital in that space for men to do the things that patriarchy has told them to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're being a man and you're providing and you're also, stepping out, then you're a man and you're looked up to. But if you're like creating a safe space, like helping your woman at home, helping raise
Mm-hmm.
kids, showing love and support for hobbies and all these other things, being her cheerleader, then showing her affection, you know, then you're
Yeah.
simping. Then you're somebody who is less masculine, more feminine. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's an insult, but to me it's not. Like I feel like you have to be able to reach into your masculine and feminine spheres at different times.
Right.
There are things
Right.
that intersect, and so it's important for me to say like, and also like, why is me showing love and support for someone that I love and support feminine?
A
Like, how
problem.
come that's not
Right.
masculine? Right? Like, how come that's
Right.
not also masculine? Like, I think
Right.
there's this odd kind of justification or like attachment. Like, okay, if you're supportive, then that's feminine. No, if you're supportive, you can be both
Mhm.
feminine and masculine in your support. If you're loving and affectionate, you can be both feminine and masculine in these two things. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's definitely something that we need to find ways to cheer on men who are
Mhm.
able to show up for the people they love and support in ways beyond just how they show up in like our societal defined masculine ways, like showing love and support and being affectionate and being caring are masculine attributes as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely agree with that. We just gotta do better.
Hmm. Yeah,
We
for
just have
sure.
to do better. And allow people
Hmm.
to be who they are. And show up as they are. That's the healthiest thing you can do for a person is allow them to be who they are and show up as their whole self. And
Hmm.
give them the space to maneuver as they need to. While they
Yeah.
also do the same for you in return.
Hmm. And if that doesn't work for you, like if they communicate in the way that's toxic or not comfortable, it's
Mhm.
you have to be able to say, hey, this doesn't work for me. These are the ways that work
Mhm.
for me. And if they're not willing to change, then maybe like whatever kind of situation, partnership, relationship this is, it's probably not going
Mhm.
to work. Because then
Yeah.
you can't force it to work and then try to change the communication. Maybe it's
Right,
something you say,
right,
hey, we need to work on this communication so we can go forward. And if we can't, then we
right.
have to go our separate ways.
Yeah, I definitely agree with
Yeah.
that. And I think I met you in a time where I had just started learning what was healthy communication for myself. And that was
Mm-hmm.
why I was like, "You're not gonna do this. I'm gonna need you to get that together. Let's figure out what this is because, yeah, And I think maybe." me 5 years prior to meeting you probably would have been like, okay, that's just how he is. Let me not rock the boat, type
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I was like, nah, that's some bullshit. I'm not about to do this. So
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure, for sure. I guess what's your experience with trauma responses then? Like, have you ever like responded traumatically to somebody, or have you experienced where somebody else is like always giving you a trauma response? Like, what is your experience to that?
I think I've been on both sides of it. And I think part of it came with me figuring out what my triggers were.
Mm-hmm.
Before I realized like, oh wow, I've really been like, responding in trauma ways.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing that I used to do was I was a flight girl. Like I'm not going to argue, I don't want to fight. Like, all right, I'm just going to retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that was like leaving situations completely or just like retreating into myself and not saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I did spend a lot of time in flight mode because I didn't want to fight with nobody, and which is really crazy because she pops off, but it was. I mean,
She's
it's like
sensitive
really
too.
crazy. Yes, hella sensitive, like hella sensitive. Not even gonna pretend. Um, which is so crazy. Like I'm two sides of the coin. I also realized something as simple as "you good" is a trigger for me, and I don't know. Well, I know where it comes from, but like I didn't realize that just somebody, especially like text messages, like just like "you good," "are you good," and "you good" are just two completely different things for me. "You good"
Mm-hmm.
is a trigger, because I remember a time where I was with somebody who would do some really like dumb fucked up shit and then just be like, you good, what I'm saying? Like it was like just like there was like no, I don't know, it was like no compassion, no
Yeah, no
empathy.
care.
It was like,
Yeah.
right, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I fucked up, you good, what I'm saying? Like I've been in my fuck boy bag, you good? Like, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not good. So you good versus are you good is a trigger for me that I
Mm-hmm.
realized recently, like maybe in the last 6 or 7 months, that you good just trigger something in me and it's like, yeah. So yeah, definitely have like different responses when it comes down to trauma. I have seen where people have been ready to fight, like get in fight mode when it came
Mm-hmm.
down to communicate with me, just because like they've triggered, like I've triggered something in them that I didn't realize. And I think the biggest
Mm-hmm.
part of communication is understanding and recognizing your triggers. And a lot of people don't do that. Like a lot of people don't acknowledge what ticks them and or recognizes it as it happens. My words don't come out today. People don't recognize it as it happens, and sometimes I think it's our triggers that have us responding to the trauma and like people
Mm-hmm.
having to find what their triggers are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
I I agree with a lot of that. I think that for me, I have been. I have been a trigger for people in
Hmm.
the way I respond, like very non-compassionately in some instances.
Hmm.
Um, I think I talked about this in the episode. Uh, if I tell you the iron is hot and you touch the iron, like it's hard for me to then have compassion for you, you know? So if you come to me for
Hmm.
advice and you do the thing that I told you not to do, or the thing that is like most detrimental to you, like it is very
Hmm.
hard for me to have compassion for you because you made that adult choice. And sometimes you say it all the time, Reese, you got to live with your choices.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta live
And
right.
it's,
Listen,
yeah,
you gotta
and
live
so
with your
it's very
decisions. Like
hard
that
for
was your
me.
choice. Live with your choices. Don't double back now. Nah, live with your choices.
Yeah, live with your choices.
Live
And
with your
so in those
choices.
instances, I have absolutely been an asshole and like non like will respond non-compassionately
Mm-hmm.
without empathy, without care, because somebody made a decision that I thought was wrong. We talked about how it was wrong and they still made that decision, you know? So there's been times
Yeah.
where I could have definitely shown more care and compassion in that space. I think in responding, like when I was younger, I had a short temper and I would like
Mm-hmm.
I would fight. Like I was somebody who like my respect was important. This was a long time ago, y'all. I'm gonna tell y'all this. I used to throw like temper tantrums and react very quickly to things. It was it was sixth or seventh. I think it was seventh grade, and I beat the hell out of this little kid, like bad. Cops came to my house, like questioned me, all kinds of things. He called me the N word, and my dad sat me down that day and had this whole conversation with me around like our responses to things and how much
Mhm.
responsibility we have in that space, and how
Mhm.
me as a black man cannot violently respond to things because my life and my future are in danger when that happens, because it doesn't matter um, if you're right or wrong in that space. When the police come,
Mhm.
it's different. And I think
Yeah.
that changed me a lot. That changed a lot about how I viewed and valued respect. Because I think, especially as a black man, respect is something that is so important in communities and
Mhm.
friendships, and like going to play basketball and showing up at football practice and all
Mhm.
these different environments. Like the last thing you do is have somebody disrespect you. And I had to learn very early the difference between disrespect, disagreement, and trying to get under my skin, right? There are people who respect
Yeah.
you who will try to get under your skin. There are people who try to disrespect you, and there are people who just disagree with you, you know? And so I had to learn very quickly around somebody talking shit behind my back, they respect me because they're not man or woman enough to say it in my face, because they know better. You
Yeah.
know, there's a level of respect
Yeah.
that they have for me. Um, People who disagree with me and challenge my opinions, that's not disrespect for me. You know, that's just, we can agree to disagree in that space, and you can own that and I can own that. You know, and I own
Mhm.
those things. Um, and I think my other trauma response is my silence. I think that is something that I have
Mhm.
weaponized in the past, and I've used as a way to, um, I guess, own a space without having to say
Mhm.
anything. You know, like just allowing
Yeah.
my presence
Yeah.
to dominate the space and make it comfortable for me, and not caring if it's uncomfortable for you, or not caring if I need to be compassion or show acknowledgement. You know, like I think that was a
Mhm.
way that I was disrespectful in some relationships. I don't think I knew that
Mhm.
at the time. I think that it had been used against me for a lot of times, and so I just thought it was a
Mhm.
way people were understood in that space. So I think those are my main trauma responses. Like I would fight when I was young. As I got older, I think the silence um, became the thing that I used the most. And I also think I felt the trauma responses from the way that I delivered things when I spoke to people.
Yeah. I also think that for myself,
Mm-hmm.
ghosting is a trauma response as well.
Mm.
Because you don't communicate what the issues are, which is the healthiest thing to do. But like, listen, when I tell you shut down, out the way, be out the way, like,
Gone.
I just, right, and it's just really crazy because like some people will try to gaslight you into thinking that you are the problem, and that's not always
Mm.
the situation. You know what I'm saying? Some people will
Mm.
definitely try to make it seem like it's you, in actuality, they've been like on some stupid stuff from the get go. So for me, instead of
Mm.
even like trying to like go back and forth and allow you to gaslight me, I'm just gonna like, all right, cool, scoop, like
Mm.
I am so out the way, so out the way. And then it's also again, that is childish in a way because like you're not communicating what the issues are, but then it's also a part of like self-preservation. Like, why am I going
Mm.
to put myself in the midst of this? A lot of trauma responses come out of self-preservation, and trying
Mm.
to survive, like getting in survival mode. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
um Go ahead.
I was just gonna say absolutely. I think I'm somebody who has experienced trauma responses in communicating how I feel in like dating
Mhm.
situations, right? There have been instances
Mhm.
where I've broken up with somebody or wanted to, not continuing to get to know someone, and their response
Mhm.
to that is that trauma response that you are of trying to avoid, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
I've been in situations where people have cursed me out and talked all bad about me and all this stuff, and I just delete
Mhm.
it because I'm not going to engage with you in that. I'm like, hey, it's been great getting to know you. I don't think it's really working out for me. This is not working. Da 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 da. I wish you the
Mhm.
best. You know, try to keep it on the up and up. Try to keep it as positive as possible. And if you respond to that as if your response to that is to call me all out of my name and dog me into the dirt, that lets me know like that's not disrespect. That's your trauma
Mhm.
coming out from rejection, and that has nothing to do with me. You know, because if you really felt all those things, we wouldn't be talking, right? Like we wouldn't be talking if I was all these assholes and dogs and all kinds of other shit. We'd just be two people in the wind essentially. But you were here for a reason. I was here for a reason. It just didn't work out. So I think those are instances that are definitely not comfortable. But I think for me, I have been able to like live in that space because I don't have to engage with everything that is thrown my direction. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, you froze for a second. So I was like, so a good portion of that I didn't hear.
Okay.
So yeah. All right. So yeah, you said people will dog you out, and
Hmm.
as the response, and that's what I heard, and
Okay.
then it froze on me.
All
Okay.
right. Well, how about we just go right into the four
Okay.
F's?
Okay.
What
Perfect.
are the
So,
four F's of trauma responses, Reese?
all right. The mental health community broadly recognizes the four types of trauma responses as uh fight, which is basically self-preservation, and sometimes fight can be done with whole like disregard to anybody else's comfort levels,
Hmm.
and people can get hurt in the process. It can be both healthy and unhealthy if done correctly. All trauma responses can be healthy or unhealthy if done correctly.
Hmm.
After fight, there is flight, where people retrieve or leave a situation altogether. Then you have what is called the freeze response, where people, what they say, quote unquote, play possum. I don't know if you remember this growing up, like, oh, you playing possum, as if like you're not there, like you're invisible
Hmm.
or you can't be seen or whatnot.
Hmm.
So playing possum, instead of trying to like fight or to run away from danger, they just kind of like freeze and like,
Hmm.
I'm playing possum. And
Yep.
then the last one is fawn, where it's basically people pleasing. I was a fawner. I had no idea. I was like, I didn't know what fawning is. And then here I was out here in life fawning, people pleasing, or going above and beyond to keep a person happy. Sometimes this is done to escape different types of like treatment
Hmm.
that they're receiving, or to like neutralize a threat. I was like going above and beyond trying to make people happy in
Yeah.
regards to like just not that I was like being beat on or anything, like any
Hmm.
misbehaviors physically, but there was definitely some emotional stuff that I endured unnecessarily because I didn't speak up. So,
Yeah.
yeah, those are the four: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. When it comes down to trauma responses, have you used any of these at all, or have you recognized when somebody has had this type of response with you?
Yeah. I think the fight response is something that I used when I was younger. Like I would be somebody who would be more likely to confront, so not in a healthy
Hmm.
way. I think
Hmm.
freeze never, not
Yeah,
from me. I guess I always got something to say and I always got some
yeah.
response. So um, flight, no, because like I enjoy being face to face with adversity, so I don't think I've ever used it to
Mhm.
like get out. But I definitely, as I've gotten older, have used fawn in a more healthy way because I think there have been
Yeah.
instances where I've been engaged aggressively and been able to mitigate that through fawning with somebody. You know, like if I get in an
Yeah.
argument that I thought was a healthy conversation and then it turns
Mhm.
into or feels very unhealthy, then I've
Yeah.
fawned to ensure that it stays on track. So I think that's a good
Right.
strategy that I've used for me. I think it works. I think
Mhm.
it's like when I say, "Oh no, I see it your way," or "Oh, I can understand that." Like those are ways to
Mhm.
provide acknowledgement without
Yes.
provide acknowledgement and like justify somebody. And I only do this when they're like it's an opinion or it's a feeling that they have. I want to ensure that I like provide some some solace in that space rather than always objecting in that space. I used to be somebody who would object
Right.
everything. Like I was somebody
Yeah.
who would, if you tell me you were feeling some way, I would like I would essentially potentially gaslight you in an instance. Like, oh, you're feeling this way because X, Y, and Z. You know, like I would tell you why,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
not creating a safe space for somebody. Um, so I think that yeah, I've embodied the fight part, and in my
Mhm.
older years, in my more wise, healthier communication delivering self, I've used fawn as a way to acknowledge and to mitigate any type of like toxic or traumatic responses in my direction. How about you? Have you
Yeah.
experienced or used any of these, or have you been in a situation where you have triggered that response in somebody else?
So I think I trigger flight in people at
Mm-hmm.
times. Definitely professionally, I feel like I have
Mm.
unintentionally had somebody go into flight mode. Like I could be having a conversation with somebody or giving directions to somebody or,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get a point across. And instead of them continuing the conversation and like, like the dialogue back and forth, they just, they'll start to say something like, don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever you say type thing.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like,
I've
no,
been there.
like I want yeah, I'm like, no, I want to understand. Like I want to understand. I need to see it from your side.
Mm-hmm.
And I never intend to trigger flight out of people,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes I do
Yeah.
get flight out of people, and it's never intentional. I have been in fight mode plenty of times.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes down to like some of the responses that I've had, I always lead with love. People swear I am the meanest thing ever, but I always lead with love. But for me, getting into fight mode has become my fight mode has been more healthy for
Mm-hmm.
myself than it
Mm-hmm.
has been unhealthy because like I've been more assertive about me and who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I've created boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
which is definitely like me fighting back. I've definitely had to create boundaries with myself, just because like I need to be in survival mode in a healthy way. So
Yeah.
I think my biggest fight has been boundaries that I have started to implement and develop with people.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're so combative now." I'm not combative at all. But what
Yeah.
I am is letting you know how, limiting your access to me and what you can, get away with and or do. You know?
Absolutely.
I know when it comes down to fawning in a more healthier way, I've always been compassionate in communication. Like
Mm-hmm.
for others, I'm always going to like listen to you and like I'm trying to ensure everything is okay and like fairness and all that kind of stuff. I'm willing to compromise. Lord knows I'm
Mm-hmm.
willing to compromise because you and I are still friends. So so
We both willing to compromise.
look, you are now. You welcome, because somebody you had to be shown the error of your ways, like a mess, a whole
Listen, I'm
mess.
always willing to
But
compromise. I just need to know why. I think sometimes people always want to compromise, but they don't tell me why I need to. And I think you just did a better job of telling me why. That's all. Like,
a
okay,
whole
I see that.
mess,
I see that. I can do that. We can do that. That's cool.
a whole mess, like a whole
Other
mess.
folks just be like,
For
do this. I'm like, nah, I ain't gonna do that.
I ain't doing that. I ain't doing for
mm-mm,
what?
nah, I'm
Look for
good. For
what?
what?
Look,
Yeah, why? This is working just fine for me. Like, what do you mean?
right. Like I like how it's going. So I don't know what issues you got, but this
Yeah,
is good for
exactly.
me. Um, but yeah, definitely. I feel like I have evolved, like you said, and when it comes down to my responses and being more aware, just self awareness for
Mm-hmm.
one is the biggest thing that helped shift my responses, my communication, just self awareness, and saying that this
Hmm.
isn't working for me. How this is going does not
Yeah.
work for me. And yeah, I'm not doing this. Like, why am I making things more comfortable for everybody else when I'm uncomfortable? And that had to be like the biggest
Facts.
lesson for myself. Like, it's time I gotta be
Hmm.
comfortable too. So I
Yeah.
choose me. I choose me.
As you should, as you should.
Yeah.
Uh, so I looked up what I guess healthy communication is, and it
Okay.
says it's the ability to share, convey or share emotions, feelings, sentiment, and desires without hateful and I can't even read my handwriting, without hateful responses, and the right to agree to disagree. And I think like
Mm.
it's a very vague and broad because I think all of these
Hmm.
things are different for each of us, right? Like I think that's why I was
Right.
saying earlier that my healthy communication has evolved. I think when I was younger,
Hmm.
how I communicated, I think it was more normalized, and I think
Hmm.
it wasn't an issue. I feel like in the
Hmm.
'90s, you could just say whatever the hell you wanted to say. Like it just wasn't, like like if you was an
Right.
'80s
Like
baby,
what?
you would understand. Like in the late '80s and all of the '90s, you could say whatever the hell you want, and nobody was upset or mad about it. Like you could just say anything. You could
Yeah.
be off the cuff. Like yeah, you could just say all the things. And as we've evolved and people have been able to share like how these things are like
Hmm.
triggering and toxic and patriarchal and all these things that we need to change within our society, like I understand more. But I think I just lived in a
Hmm.
time where like you could just say the most out of pocket shit and people wouldn't be upset with you about it, or they wouldn't
At all.
communicate they're upset with you, and I
Right.
think going
Yeah.
into like even like going to college and learning different ways to communicate with people from different parts of the country and different backgrounds, different perspective. And you're like, oh, this is how y'all
Hmm.
do it? Okay, I could see the benefit in that. And so I think it's been this
Hmm.
evolution
Hmm.
with time, with age, with the change in our society, with
Hmm.
cultural norms changing and just things evolving and identifying where
Yeah.
the toxicity comes from in my patriarchal language sometimes that I just
Hmm.
didn't I wasn't aware of. So just learning more I think
Yeah.
has helped evolve what healthy communication is. Um and so yeah, like what are your thoughts on like this definition of like healthy communication?
So I agree with being able to express feelings, emotions, thoughts, opinions, freely
Mhm.
is definitely, healthy. Allowing people to speak and be as they are. I'm all
Mhm.
for some freedom. Like
Yeah,
my whole
for
thing is
sure.
freedom. So, people allowing people to be free to be who they are, for
Mhm.
me, is the healthiest thing that you can do for somebody.
Yeah.
Allowing people to speak freely, and respectfully, though. Like, yeah, I want to make
Mhm.
sure that I am, distinguishing between, freedom of speech and being respectfully free to speak. There
Mhm.
is a difference.
Yeah.
But allowing people to respectfully be able to communicate, like, all aspects, opinions, feelings, emotions, in an open way, is definitely, healthy in my regard, like how I see it as healthy communication, for sure.
Yeah. I think it was interesting. Um so I think I mentioned this in other episodes, but I worked at a barbecue restaurant in Tennessee, where I
Mhm.
quit because I got called the N word at work,
Mhm.
and the guy who did it actually like it wasn't surprised to me at all. Like I knew he
Mhm.
was racist, because we had
Mhm.
conversations about certain things, and it was interesting
Mhm.
because one of the things I said to myself was like, "You're the most respectful racist person I've ever met in my entire life." Like we could have a conversation about like his views and my views, and he was never disrespectful with my views. He just disagreed with them. Like his perspective, and he
Right.
communicated his perspective well enough. It
Mhm.
was like uh, it was a problematic perspective in my opinion, but he was able
Yeah.
to communicate it
Yeah.
without really providing like nothing was personal. Like he had his opinions and
Right.
he communicated his opinions, And I was like, okay. And I had my opinions. He respected
Mm.
my opinions. And there was a level of, I want to say respect, but I know it wasn't respect,
It
but there
wasn't,
was
yeah.
something where there was, yeah, there was something where we could have these communications about our perspective in a way that nobody took anything personal. So I thought it was very interesting when he did call me the N word that like he called it to me. He said it behind my back, first of all, but like we said earlier, you say it behind my back, then I know.
Yeah.
but
Yeah. But I,
but yeah, it was interesting that we could have that conversation with such varying degrees of
mhm.
uh, like we're so far apart in our perspective, but the level of respect
Right.
within the conversation was still there.
Yeah. And I think
Mm-hmm.
with that particular guy, I feel like he in communication with you, although it was respectful,
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't being as true to himself. Like he was saying what his views were, but he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like spewing the true feelings that he had until the day he got upset and said it, as you were
Facts.
walking out, behind your back. So like he
Mm-hmm.
was always, problematic, and
Facts.
he just knew how to mask his behavior until
Mm-hmm.
he was upset enough to show up as his true self.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He absolutely did a great way of masking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess as we've had this conversation about healthy experiences or healthy communication and
Mhm.
trauma responses, I guess what are some intentional things that you've done? I know we talked about it a little bit. Like, what have you done to like just improve your conversation, improve your communication with others? Like, what are some things that have helped you grow throughout your lifetime?
So the first thing I did was I committed to speaking up for Sharice.
Mm-hmm.
Like once I made the commitment to ensure that I spoke up for me, I think my this communication overall changed. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we have to be. Like I had to be comfortable with making other people uncomfortable respectfully,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and at one point I wasn't like, again, I wanted everybody to be, as long as everybody else is good, at the detriment to me, it's okay. But like, no, I'm not doing
Mm-hmm.
that. Like, I'm not doing that. So once I committed to speaking up for Sharice first, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's all it took for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been honest with how I feel respectfully. And I've been
Mm-hmm.
forthcoming about things. Like I stopped allowing
Mm-hmm.
things to slide. And that's the best
Yeah,
thing I
for
feel
sure.
like I could have done. And continue to do. Like I don't let shit slide. Like, oh, that's sideways. You're gonna hear that it's sideways, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
the way you responded to me does not work for me. Now we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna fix it, or we just gonna agree to move on. But yeah, I just had to commit to speaking up for Sharice.
Mm-hmm.
Good, bad, or indifferent. I had to like, hey, this is how I was affected,
Yeah.
and let people know.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think it was the difference between intention and impact, right? Like I think I always
Mm,
leaned on my like what my intention was in the conversation and never acknowledged what my
mm,
impact was on the person within the conversation. And I think when I started
yeah,
acknowledging that part, I was able to then just acknowledge my potential or impact on a person. And I think it was different
mm,
because like I said, I think it involved a lot. I used to tell people I dated that I was an asshole, and so like I told them in the beginning, I told them what it looked like. So if you saw it, like that's just part of who I am, right? And
yeah,
so it would happen, and they would want me to apologize, and I'm like, look, I told you from the beginning this is what it was. So like when you decided to like that you wanted to be with me, this is what you signed up for. And
a mess.
that shit just was that was I guess less toxic than I used to be, but still fucking toxic, right? Like,
Yeah,
and then it went
definitely.
from that to saying, like, I still tell people now, like, I'm an asshole. I apologize in advance, and I will acknowledge any impact that I have on you because these things happen in communication. They've been happening since I was
Yeah.
5 years old. And so now people is like, hey, I heard your tone in this moment. I'm like, hey, It's not my intent, and also I apologize for any impact that it had, but this is why it comes out like that. So I think now I'm able
Yeah.
to not only acknowledge the my intent, but also the impact I have on a person. I
Mhm.
apologize. I try to ensure them that like my words will always be the most effective way that I communicate. My tone and my face are usually the worst if you're trying to
But
get
yeah.
information from me because my face is gonna is giving I don't give a fuck. You know, like that's what it's
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
and
oh,
that's not
okay.
again yeah exactly, and that's not always the intent. In some instances that's absolutely the
Mhm.
intent, but I also will follow that up with my words will match that energy, you know. Like
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
you will never have, I tell people all that you'll never have to guess with me. Like I will always tell you exactly
Mm.
how I'm feeling, good, bad, or
Mhm.
indifferent, or like I
Yeah.
will always let you know. You'll never you ain't guessing. Like if I'm not feeling good, I'm telling you I'm not feeling good. If I'm pissed, I'm gonna be like I'm pissed. If I'm feeling disrespected, I'm gonna tell you I'm feeling disrespected. That has never been, I guess, my part of communication that was hard for me. I've always been able to advocate
Mhm.
and let people know about myself. But I think just
Yeah.
acknowledging, like, one, who I am in communication, two, how I impact people and my intention, and three,
Mhm.
showing up for, like you say, showing up for myself, always being able to advocate for like how I'm feeling in a moment, and
Yeah.
just continue to take feedback, right? Like
Mhm.
you interact with different people all the time. You're in customer service. I interact with different people all the time through my job, like through interviews and just people at work, and just being able to say or leave space for people to say, "Hey, like, was that okay for you? Like, how do you like to be communicated with? Like, how do you like to
Right.
communicate any problems that you're having?" Like, I think that's another thing that I've done too. Is I started
Mhm.
asking questions about if you're upset, how do you like to be engaged? If you're sad,
Right.
if I make you mad, like I want to know like different scenarios because I can do something with that information, right? Like we can have that conversation when you're
Right.
not in those things. I can then let you know that I can do that because I definitely have been told in
Yeah.
instances like, "Hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z." I'm like, "Look, I can't do that for you. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like
Yeah.
that's not going to happen. So if this is really important to you, I think
Yeah.
we can't communicate in in this way." Um, and if it is, then I'm gonna try to instill that in my brain so it happens when it happens. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get somebody else to do it.
Like
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Get somebody else to do it.
I'm
Mm-mm.
sorry, I
Mm-mm.
can't.
Right. Get somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
A mess.
I think there's absolutely been instances where I'm just like, I'm sorry. Like, if this is important to
Yeah.
you, then you should find somebody who is also important because I can't do this. And you know, interesting, like in dating situations, there are women who will tell you that something's really important to you, but you tell them it's not important to you, and they'll just be like, "Oh, it's fine.
That's the
Like,
problem.
it's not fine.
Yeah.
This is a problem. Like,
Yeah.
you can't accept less
Yeah.
than what you want." Like,
Listen, I don't, and I need somebody to help me figure it out
mm,
because I've been saying to you since I met you, I don't know what it is. People are okay with having a small piece of you just to say they got a piece of you when you out here like don't care nothing about what they care about. You know, like I don't get it. I don't get it.
I
You
don't
know,
get it
like
either.
because why we doing this again? Yeah,
Yeah, I
but then they may also have not evolved to being able to, to live with healthy communication and they're still dealing with trauma responses. And that
mm-hmm.
could be a big part of it.
Yeah.
Maybe you have run across you are in the pool of broken and not fully healed women who don't who don't know, like, you might be in the wrong pool,
Um,
don't know how to communicate what it is that they need. And this is not a knock to the women of
I'm
your
in a whole
past.
pool.
This is the pool that you're in. This is just an acknowledgement that they have things that they need to work through.
Yeah,
And
and like
I
we're not.
hope that you have. I
It's
hope
not
that you
all of them.
have.
It's not
That's
all of
all.
them. We not gonna go. It ain't all of them. It's just There have been a couple. There have been a couple. You're not wrong, but yeah, but it's
I know
interesting
I'm
too.
not.
It's interesting too because it happens like in even meeting people. It happens at
Mhm.
work. It happens in a lot of different spaces for me. I would say, um,
Yeah.
and it's curious because like I meet some women who are obviously like you know very strong as well in their
Mhm.
communication and like the things that they want. And I think I wonder too if it's part of the patriarchy that we've been talking about, right? Like I think that it's also
Mhm.
part of the accepting less than what you ideally would like because of the patriarchy, right? Like we're like, well, he has these things.
Yeah.
I can like also accept this less than he's a man. It's fine, you know. Like I think that
Yeah.
also has something to do with it. But yeah, I don't. I don't know. I don't know. It's an
Yeah.
interesting one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All I can say is it depends on who you are raised to be. You know,
Mm-hmm.
princesses are raised to be pampered and be kept. Queens are
Mm-hmm.
raised to rule and, be strong. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes princesses walk out like they're queens, but in actuality, they're really the handmaiden. But,
Well, damn, they're the hammy. You're not even really the princess. You just been raised as a princess.
but okay. Well, okay. But we're going to get off of that because, yeah.
Oh man. So I guess lastly, are there things regarding your communication or your trauma responses that you know specifically that you want to continue to work
I definitely want to work on my ghosting response.
on?
I definitely it's definitely something that I definitely definitely, if you didn't hear me say definitely, need to work on, because
Hmm.
I mean I'm so in the point right now where I just can't deal with foolishness.
Yeah.
And some people don't realize that that's what they're operating in, foolishness, So
Mm.
maybe I need to acknowledge what I'm feeling to people who are behaving in a way that they may not be aware of. So I need to
Mm.
be less willing to ghost somebody and more
Mm.
willing to at least have a final conversation, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I definitely gotta work on my ghosting skills, because like when I'm out, I'm out, and whether you know or
Mm.
not, it don't matter to me because I'm out. And sometimes that's not the best. That's not the best response. Like I'm out, and I need to let you know that I'm out. And if you want to know why I'm out, I'll be vocal with that too. But I have to do better about ghosting people. My
Mm.
curve game is just like it's ridiculous
Listen,
at this point.
listen.
And
It's backdoor all
yeah.
over. You can curve got anything. Skirt.
Right. Like whoop, whoop, wait, whoop, whoop.
Dodgeball.
Yeah.
You like
Right.
Grand Rising Queen. Like you just
Right. Right. Matrix and the bad
the
boys. Like,
Matrix.
right. Oh, like, nope. A mess. So crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think for me, I really want to work on my face because I still think it's interesting because I see episodes of our podcast and I'm like, damn, why am I looking
hmm
like that? Because it's just like it's how I listen, but it's
yeah.
not.
I'm
It's
the same way.
yeah, it's how I listen. It's just like that's how you know I'm listening. If my ass is like this,
Mhm.
I'm probably not listening. But if my ass is like, I'm absolutely listening.
Yeah, you're like right. I'm
Yeah.
actively listening, tuned in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mhm.
Yep. Um, Another thing is taking a moment before I respond.
Mm.
I think this one. is for the comfort of others more so than it is for me.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
because I've been told that I respond too quickly, and it's like I don't
Mm.
even listen. And
Oh,
I think for
did
me,
you
like I'm
did you
smart.
hear what the person
I
said though? I was saying, did you hear what the person
absolutely.
said though? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so okay,
Absolutely. Like
oh,
I
okay.
and I think in those instances, like I just I don't know what it is. Like I'm quick. My brain functions like is quick, and so like I think through what I need to think through. I take all it in, and then I reply.
Mhm.
Um, there's not a lot of things that I need to process for a long time. There are some things, but a lot of the time, like there's some things that I'm just sure about. You know, like so if we're talking about one of those things that I'm sure about, I'm able to respond. But taking a minute acknowledges and makes people feel that you listened to them more deeply, you know? So, and then also
So are you taking
acknowledge.
are you are you taking a minute to like conjure up some emotion, or like you taking a minute because the response is gonna be different? You
I
just
ain't
taking a
conjuring
minute
up
to give them
emotion.
some.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like.
I'm
What
a
is the
conjure up
pause
an
for?
emotion
Like,
now. Like, come on now, no. Like, but it has been a thing.
I'm
I would
trying.
say it has been a thing in like relationships where like you just respond too quickly, and I'm just like, I'm confused. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
but
lost in that
the
one.
other part is like my mom told me too. Like, so it's come from multiple types of relationships. So,
Mhm.
um, but this next part goes in it, acknowledging what if somebody says. So if somebody says, "I
Okay.
feel that you don't listen to me," and my first response is going to be like, "I hear you when you say that you feel like I don't listen to you." Like, and even like taking before I respond, you know, so that way I'm acknowledging what they said and then responding. So like I think those two go together. um
Okay.
and like how I want to respond in the future. And I
Okay.
think framing, doing a better job of framing my position in certain things rather than just saying the thing, because sometimes saying the thing may sound mean, but it's not my intention. So being
Mm.
able to say, I feel X, Y, and Z, and that's why X, Y, and Z, you know, rather than saying, just
Okay.
responding with X, Y, and Z, and that's why, period. You
Right.
know, because I'm short. And so I'm not somebody who takes a lot of words to say little things or big things. So sometimes I just like
Yeah.
respond and it's like, oh, that's it. Like, yeah, that's all I needed to say about that. So I don't need to say anything else. But I think framing
Yeah.
it helps people digest things better. It softens the blow of
Okay.
hard news to give or bad news to give. And I think it also gives people, makes people feel heard when you acknowledge them, take a moment, and then respond with a framed answer for them. So those are the things that I'm working on
Okay.
currently. My face, taking a moment, acknowledgement, and framing.
Okay. And I probably need to work on my
Yeah.
facial expressions as well because, sometimes I'm going to look at you like you dumb as all. What? My face ball up quick, and I can be like, I can like be listening to you and like, hearing what you're saying, but as soon as you're saying
Mhm.
something stupid, even though I'm still listening, it's like,
Yeah.
what?
Listen.
And then I'm
Listen.
like, well, okay, da, da, da. But they're like, now how you really feel? What my face say? Because
Yeah. Listen. Listen.
yeah.
I one of the favorite times of me and Reese's relationship is when we used to go to like somebody else's poetry show, and didn't matter who, could be in town, out of town, wherever we were. There was going to be a moment in that evening where one of us text each other, "Fix your face," because one of us is going to be in that space like. That's how I knew Reese was always going to be the homie. Is because we were at a show one time, the first time it ever happened, I was looking. I know my face had to be all scrunched up and just in shock and awe and disgust probably. But she sent me a text message, told me fix your face. And I looked up, I was like, oh shit. Like I was over here tight face too. Like
A mess.
but I
And you know,
appreciated
it's so
that.
yeah, but it's so crazy too because like our faces will have a full conversation with each other from across the room. Like we
Listen.
don't have to say a word. Like I don't look, he don't look, I don't look again, and he done responded with the look. Listen, you already know. Like, we had a whole conversation. Ain't said a word. A
And it's
mess.
funny because there have been instances where I know who to look for when the thing that is being said is said. If I'm not sitting next to Reese, or even if I am sitting next to Reese, we gonna look at each other the same way, and I love it. Did you just hear this dumbass motherfucker? What he just said? Did you? And then when we look at each other, we're gonna look away, and then we're gonna look at each other again because we know we gotta respond to the look that we both gave each other. And then we're probably gonna
and
laugh.
then the phones come out.
Yeah, and then the phones come out. We can't talk, but I'm about to text you to death, like.
Right. A mess.
So.
I hope it's, and Ian don't have a quiet laugh. Like you know, my laugh get loud, but if we sit somewhere and you say something, it's gonna be
It is. And Reese can't whisper, so it's fine. So we're in the same boat. That's why we text message.
I cannot whisper at all. The whole room is gonna hear it. Like
Reese, you're not whispering. You're just talking in my ear right now. What are you doing? Text me.
I am whispering.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody looking at us. Everybody looking at us like, who talking? You know. It's her. It's Reese. That's who it is.
A mess.
Oh man. Yeah, I think
too funny.
It's amazing because Reese and I think we hit it off very quickly in our communication. Like we had a really good banter for a lot of things. I think where places where where I have fallen or where we have fallen are in the same places that we're talking about, right? Like fixing my face, acknowledging like what somebody says and how somebody is feeling, acknowledging the impact I have instead of the intent. I think all these things are things that her and I have had to navigate. I think also like I think you mentioned earlier like your fawning in instances. Reese didn't fawn with me ever. I'm just gonna throw that out. Like she ain't never fawned with me. Like
yes, I did. Yes, I did. It might have been for 2 minutes, but it was still there.
It might have been for 2 seconds, but I'm getting the fight too. Like, what you say? I'm getting the fight more so than I'm getting the fawning.
A mess. Look, I think my fawning with you was healthy fawning because I had to learn compromise. Yeah. So I think I definitely fawned with you in a healthy way because of compromise.
Yeah, for sure. I don't disagree with that in some instances. Okay. I think fawning with us has always been healthy, like on both sides. I don't think. Yes. I think we created a space where we could talk to each other a particular way. We like we're allowed, like we definitely like are in this lane, right? And we got to stay in our lane. But there, like we have leeway. Like there's a shoulder as well, because sometimes we both get out of lane, and we know it's not disrespectful now. You know, I think early on we thought it was disrespectful. But now we're like, okay, you stay in your lane, and also you got some leeway, you know, and so
Right. You know how like you go off to the shoulder and it has the little ripples and you hear that? Like once you go off, you got to get back into your lane now.
Come back.
All right. You merge too far. You merge too far.
Because you go too far, it's a cliff. Yeah. It ain't gravel. Okay. It ain't dirt. it ain't bushes. It's a
Nope.
cliff. So I think for
Mm-mm.
both of us, it's like, okay, we good because we usually stay in our
Right.
lane 99% of the time. But of
Right.
course, there's that 1% of the time
Right.
you might swerve and be like, I'm gonna get in your lane, and then she
Mhm.
gonna be like, look, you better get your ass back in your lane.
Right. You're doing too much. Don't
You
fuck
doing the
around and
most.
overcorrect, and it's gonna be a problem. No mess. Wait a
Yeah, but
minute
I think
now. Wait a minute.
we both have really good boundaries with each other, and so like
Yeah.
I'm glad to know Reese's boundaries, and I'm glad she knows mine, and
Mhm.
I know Reese's
Mhm.
heart as well, which is important because I know where
Mhm.
everything is well intended, and so it has less of an impact on me, and I hope she knows the same. Like
Yeah.
99.9% of things are well intended, and so it has less. I'm hoping it has less of an impact because the tone still happens. It does.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
Yeah. And
it's not as bad
I've
as it
had
used to be because she
to.
used to tell my ass.
Oh yeah.
She used to tell me don't talk to her like that. I'd be like what?
Right. Listen. You know what you're doing. You're not stupid.
Yeah. She used to say that,
Yep.
but like I really don't hear it. I really was
Yep.
stupid. Like,
Right. Not stupid. Like what? You know what you're doing. A mess. Mm-mm. But yeah, we've definitely come a long way.
for sure.
Especially with our communication has
Mm-hmm.
definitely come a long way. And people used to say to me, "You the only one who can get him to talk right. Talk to him. Get him together." And I'm like, "Listen, he can't help it. Look, he can't help it. Like it's
Y'all, I really can't.
a
I
mess."
really wish I could, but when it happens, I
Mhm.
don't hear it. So
Yeah.
I apologize and acknowledge, which I wish I could have done better in the past in some instances.
Then right,
Yeah, but
right.
I know better now, so I'm doing better. I'm doing better. Like the
Yeah.
folks at work, like they think I communicate amazingly, and I'm like, do y'all know how much work it has taken for me to get here? Like, you know how many
Yeah.
like how long it takes me to write a Slack message sometimes because what I want to say is the thing I got to stay away from.
Right. Right. Yeah.
My natural response is a problem.
Okay. So you know what I've learned with work emails, like when it comes down to like me saying the things that I want to say, I type out what I
Mm,
want to say first because like
yeah,
I'm going in, I got to get it out, and then I delete and then go back and let the professional Sharice show up. But Reese,
yeah. Listen.
be killing them keyboard like, look, the email come out, and then I have to delete it all and then start over. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Reese does the rough draft, and Sharice sends
Mm,
the final draft
yeah. You
because
know what I
yeah,
do?
what's that?
I like in Slack. We use Slack at work, and so I have a
Mhm.
Slack message with myself, and so I will
Okay,
type and send that message
to
to
yourself.
myself.
Okay,
Somebody gonna get this
a
work.
mess.
That's what I'm sending. Like somebody gonna
Right,
get this.
and,
Yeah.
right,
Because I
because
gotta hit
oh
the enter.
no,
It don't feel good unless you hit enter afterwards. Like I gotta hit that enter
right.
button.
Mm-mm. I hit cat block.
Yeah.
Clearly, you got me fucked up this time. And then I'm going in at it, and then I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
delete. Do you want to save draft? No.
Nope.
Delete.
And
No.
then we like, after
Delete.
careful consideration, we really believe that this course of
Right.
action is not,
Mhm.
like, we get in our professional
Right.
bag, but that ratchet
Right.
bag got to come out first.
Listen, I got to get it out. Got
Yeah.
to get it out.
I think that's a good tool though. Like
Mhm.
I think that's a good way to work on recognizing that fight
Mhm. Yeah.
response, or
Yeah.
even the fawning response, or even a flight response, is being able to like, what is your initial reaction to the thing that you're hearing, and like in email
Right.
situations or texting, because Reese know
Mhm.
I sent messages to Reese and been like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And she'd be like, "Don't send this." Don't send that.
Nope.
Like, why not? What's wrong
Don't
with
send
it?
it. Right.
And then she'll
Send
send
this.
me
That don't
something that's
sound like
like,
me. Right. That don't sound like me. Well,
yeah,
I need
she'd
you
be
to
like,
alter it,
good.
but this needs to be the message. Look, this needs to be the message.
Hmm.
Not what you sent.
And
No.
I would, yeah. I understand now that my first initial response, hell, my second and my third responses are probably not the best. They've gotten a lot
Mm-mm.
better, but For
I
the most part,
have.
I need to like think through how people interpret me. Because I used to say,
Yeah.
well, if somebody could send me this, I wouldn't care. Like it wouldn't
Right.
bother me because I see the words. The words are more important, and but the tone and the potential impact is very important to other people. So
Yeah.
now I have more care in delivering my messages.
Yes.
I'm like here you go. Because before I used to ball them motherfuckers up and throw them like baseballs at folks.
Okay. Oh man. I
Catch
don't care.
it.
Here.
Here.
Oh man. A whole mess.
Uh, oh
Yeah.
man, but I think this is a really good conversation. I'm glad you and I could have it. I'm
Mhm.
glad that we've identified some things that we both want to work on.
Yes.
And I don't know, it's been nice to hear about your journey with communication, especially because we've been on a journey with communication and I see
Mhm.
how healthy we've become over the last 10
Mhm.
years, which is really crazy to think that
Yeah.
we've known each other for over 10
I know.
years.
10 years.
10
So
years, Reese.
crazy.
Crazy.
We got a
Crazy.
decade in that thing.
Listen, you stuck with me now, so it's fine. Like it
uh,
don't even matter. We don't
now,
even keep
yeah,
track
now.
now. Like you just stuck. Like it's forever now. Like whatever, how long you know it forever.
Right.
At this point, like
Right.
it's
Forever.
forever.
Forever. Right. Like, listen, dear future husband,
hmm
we stuck with him. Look,
Yeah.
we stuck with him.
Dear
So,
future wife, we stuck with her.
right.
So
Right. Just know I come as a package deal, Ian is part of the package. A
I'm
mess.
gonna be around. So and she gonna be around.
Right. Right.
For sure, for sure.
Um,
But
too
all
too
right,
funny.
ladies and gentlemen, Reese, you want to send us off the way you do best?
Yes, but before I do, so I got a inbox message. Somebody asked me what book was I reading when I was laying across the bed in the last episode that we
Oh,
put out, a
okay.
couple episodes that we put out. It's like, oh, what book was you reading? Because you was like, I be reading. So the book is called Black Love Signs. It's
mm,
people that are into like signs and astrology and stuff. It's Black Love Signs. It's the astrological guide to passion, romance, and relationships for African Americans.
okay.
A lot of the books that are out, some of them don't think about people of color and how like
Mm,
relationships are different in those aspects.
facts.
But the book is by Thelma Balfour. I bought this book. I probably had this book close to 15, 20 years now, and I refer to it from time to time. I pretty much know it front and back because it tells you about the compatibility between different signs. Like what I'm a
Mm.
Gemini, so I know what signs I'm the most compatible with, and
mm-hmm.
what I can expect out of relationships with other signs. And this book has not failed me yet. So when I
Mm-hmm.
say that I when they say, oh well, I'm this sign of, oh, I can tell somebody what their sign is. Oh, so you are X, Y, and Z. And
Yeah.
they be like, oh, how you know? Oh, I be reading
I've
because
been
I be
reading.
reading. A mess, but it's Black Love Signs is the book that got me the look from across the room. So
Nice,
yeah.
nice.
All
Perfect,
right.
perfect. Well, I
Now,
want to share. Hold on, I want to share a book too. Then
okay, go
let me
ahead.
share a book too,
Okay,
because I'm reading
sure.
"The Will to Change: Men, Masculinity, and Love" by Bell Hooks. Now, if
Yeah.
you ready for a life changing book, like ladies and
Mm-hmm.
gentlemen, like this book right here has
Yeah.
opened my eyes. It talks about
It's a good
how
one.
men are also the
Mm-hmm.
victims of the patriarchy. It talks about how I
Mm-hmm.
was referring earlier to the social currency of like maintaining that patriarchy from both the men and the women perspective. It is Bell Hooks is an amazing author, but this
Mm-hmm.
perspective lends itself to like research, opinion, thoughtfulness, like everything brought together, which I love. It's so good. And the chapters are really, really good. There's like one on like sexuality, and it talks about how men have been brought up to believe that intimacy comes from sex. And it really
Mm-hmm.
over here had me in my whole like reevaluating self phase. Like each chapter has had me in that space. So yeah,
Good, good.
read it. Like it, there's a lot. I'm on chapter 6 right now, and it's just been like fuck, I need to reevaluate life.
Sometimes we have to realize that we have to unlearn a thing in order to learn it
Facts.
again.
Mm,
Yeah.
facts.
So sometimes you
Facts.
gotta unlearn behaviors, ideologies, and principles, and you know relearn them in a completely different way. So
In a
yeah,
healthy way.
in a healthy way. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, I am going to say make sure that you all are being gentle with yourselves. Give yourself a little space and some grace to heal and maneuver how you need to. You are only responsible for today. All other days will take care of themselves as they come. Send you lots of love to all my chillers and beyond. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you all are taking care of yourselves. I hope you all are finding ways to communicate healthy as it pertains to you and what you need and what you are accepting. So, again, show yourself some grace, give yourself some space for healing and for reflecting. And yeah, I wish you all lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of peace, love, and happiness. You're only responsible for today. Let's get through it and make it a great one.
All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next week.